Alright, so this video is going to be kind of ranty and rambly, sorry. But first, this is the Webb and Hubble's view of Spiral Galaxy NGC 1672. I know I've used it before, but I kind of like this dividing line. Which, hang on, I want to see if I can do some. I don't think I can. I wish I could. Just flip the preview. It would be so much easier for me then. But anyway, coatings. Coatings, because this is going to matter when designing a spaceship. This is a Let's Build a Spaceship video. And the reason why I was thinking about it recently is I have ordered myself my copy of Star Trek The Original Series. I like the show. And I do want that in my collection. And one thing about the modern releases of it is it actually includes two versions of the episodes. One with the original effects, so the original plastic models, and then another that has these new enhanced CG versions, which I have an image of one open, and it's like, I mean, I get how there's some nice, but the funny thing is, it looks too plastic. It almost, like, the surface scattering just, it doesn't look right. It looks like plastic, which is so weird because it's like, that's how I would explain it, why I don't like it. It looks like plastic. But the original was made out of plastic. Yeah, but it looked right. I don't know how to explain it. But one thing that did occur to me as I thought about it, though, is that, and it is actually in one of my books, in A Letter from Catherine, I do talk about a coating, and it is like a significant thing about the ship, is that there's a coating over the outside. You would have a spaceship be painted with something. What I describe is a ceramic layer. So I imagine it kind of like slip that you would paint it on and then you'd bake it. And it could potentially be quite thick. But you would have it there, this paint layer, because you'd want an ablative layer. You'd want something that when gas slams into you at high speed, high relative speed, dust particles or meteorites, you want something that's going to take that besides the metal, besides the actual bare metal of the outside of the ship. Assuming the ship is made out of metal. I guess in theory it could be made out of plastic too. But you would want something that would take that hit. Just like any kind of armor, where you want that to take the hit instead of you. I mean, even clothing can be helpful in that regard. Because even though clothing can be really thin and not necessarily, it's not going to stop certain things. Like, this wouldn't stop a bullet. But a knife, it might still deflect, it might still absorb some energy to help me. I don't want to ever find out, though. Let's not test that. But with a spaceship, you are going to want to protect it because spaceship doesn't heal. I mean, it's like, you are going to want to be able to protect the bulkheads, the outer hull. You are going to want to do that. And coatings make sense. So the original Enterprise looking plastic makes some sense. Like, it's painted plastic. Well, like it is something that is painted, and it could be a plastic base for the paint, would make sense because it would be painted. And not just with decals, because it does have some decorative stuff on there, including the NCC 1701 USS Enterprise. Besides that, you wouldn't just have that painted on. You would have the entire surface painted because that is a layer that will take damage and ablate off rather than the hull underneath. And by the way, I'm saying ablate not just because it is accurate, but it's also with Star Trek, the Defiant, I don't remember its number, but the Defiant in Deep Space Nine actually has ablative armor, so it was specifically there as well for battle armor, not just a basic, this is to protect just when normally flying around. Which is also the reason why windows don't necessarily make much sense on a spaceship. Because it would have to be very thick glass, potentially, because it needs to be able to take that same kind of damage and not break all the way through. But anyway, what I describe, and hopefully I'll keep focused on what is in A Letter from Catherine, is a ceramic layer. And I think I already said this, that would be like, I imagine like slip, you would paint it on, bake it on, and it could be quite thick. But you would do that. Why did I pick ceramic? Well, because it would be harder than just a paint that would normally dry. Ceramics are almost like artificial stone in some cases. But it's also the higher levels of body armor are ceramic plates, or at least they incorporate ceramic plates. And a thing to stop a bullet may also be able to stop a meteorite with less damage to what's underneath. Like, that's not unreasonable. And how would it actually stop it? Well, the ceramic plates, for one thing, just them breaking when the bullet hits absorbs some of the energy. So that slows down the bullet some, so it's going to be less damage to whoever is wearing it, to whatever is behind it. But it also, the ceramic material is designed such that when it breaks, the pieces there are still sharp and hard and actually tear the bullet apart. So now, instead of, I'm just trying to see, silly probably won't quite do it. Now instead of one massive thing carrying all the momentum, you have, let's say, hundreds of smaller pieces. So it's much less momentum for each, which makes it even easier to stop them with the armor, but also easier. Well, it's less likely for those to do as much damage to you because they are lower momentum by virtue of being lower mass. So that was all part of the inspiration for why I said it's a ceramic material. But it would be something that, yeah, you would be able to paint it on, more or less. You'd need to bake it, but you could do that. And then you could, if it gets damaged, you paint on top of it and, bake it again. So you can fix that, as opposed to, yeah, we got a hole, or even if it's not a hole, even if it's just a good gouge out of the metal, how are you going to fix that? You'd have to, like, go in and weld something in, which is not ideal when you're trying to do that in outer space, or you need to replace the entire thing. Again, not ideal. Because what's behind that, it might be something you don't want to expose to space. So yeah, having a ceramic layer, though, in theory, even when you're out, and I don't think I include this in the story, but in theory, when you're just out and about, you might have something you could put on top. You might have some of the slip-like materials, some of the ceramic, unbaked, that you could apply, and it would just, and maybe something that cures it. So it's there and it'll work as a patch. It might not be perfect, but it may still be viable as a patch. So, yeah, this one looks like it's going to be a short video. Lucky you. And I don't remember if I said in this video. I know I said in the previous recording, but I'm throwing that one out. I picked this image because I like the contrast between the top and bottom, as though there is a layer there. Yeah, that might not be a good enough reason, but I'm taking it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else with the idea of coatings. I mean, none specifically, but I guess just emphasizing you would have a spaceship be painted. You would have a coating on there to protect it. Just like how there's ones on your car, just like how there's coatings on airplanes and ships as well. I mean, it's like they are a protective element there, and therefore desirable. That would never go away just because, oh, it's a spaceship. It's like, no, you still need to protect it. I guess, okay, this is fair to add. Because it did occur to me while I was writing a letter from Catherine. You wouldn't necessarily have a name painted on. You wouldn't necessarily have, like, NCC 1701 USS Enterprise. You wouldn't necessarily do that because, well, it's dark space. Like, I already have that video. Dark space. It's dark. No one's going to see it. It's kind of a waste. But I also do have it because the Nancy Grayson letter from Catherine and Catherine in I Call My Ship Catherine. These are modular, and I do mention there that it's like, yeah, it's not cheap to, like, put the name on there because I have to put it on every single module. That's really, really expensive. So instead, just like radio systems are used. Like beacons to identify it, because that's like, one module that you just stick on there. It's really cheap. And in theory, you could also have one. And yeah, I do. I'm just trying to remember how I describe it. It's been half a year? No, more than half a year. Like 10 months, 8-10 months since I last read it. But the idea of having something that will, like, reflect radio waves, and you would have that on there to indicate the name of the ship. That at least is an idea. I don't think, because that could be done passively. Okay, yes, no, I think I remember now. That it was an older idea where you would have it, like, painted on the side of the ship, so when it reflects back, you'd get a pattern that would, like, read out Enterprise. But Instead, what's better, what would be used instead, because it'd be much smaller, much cheaper. And this, by the way, does exist. You can actually have an antenna set up where it absorb energy. It absorbs the radio waves, goes in. The radio waves then get altered and broadcast back out. So it's basically taking the energy of the radio wave to produce a new radio wave signal that is re-emitted. I'd have to check. I'm pretty sure that if you would look up backscatter, it's part of that, because the idea is that it's what's being scattered back when you're emitting this, and that's what it would actually be used because on the Nancy Grace, because it is cheaper. It's a much simpler, much smaller module that would still be passive. So it's like somebody's just scanning. It's like, oh, I found a ship. What ship is it? Well, the radio waves of you scanning are the energy it needs to broadcast and identify. Be much better than a active beacon, because if the power dies, it can't be identified, can't be tracked either by moving. Because if that's dead, then you need just the basic radar coming back. Whereas something that's like, hey, it altered the signal. We know now there's definitely something there. And certainly better than paint, because now it's like, well, you need visible light to even pick that up, which I don't think that's what radio waves would make sense to use. Radar makes sense in space, but going to optical, I'm not sure why you would necessarily do that. Higher frequency, higher energy. Yeah, I don't think that'd be the case. But granted, you don't have the benefits of the atmosphere with radar. Radar, the atmosphere will bounce radio waves, so you can get greater range at the right frequencies. Wouldn't have that in outer space. So in that regard, it would be equal to visible light, but I think it would still come down to it's cheaper to make radio waves. At least it can be, so yeah. And that was rather off topic. Well, sorry about that. I guess because I'm trying to remember, I need to be doing this. If you like it, you can subscribe. Hopefully I'll put out more. I get videos of different kinds on here. Some are science fiction, let's build a spaceship. Others are more storytelling focused. So, but still, please subscribe if you want. If you don't want, I understand. Like it if you like the video. You can leave a comment too. Also, there should now be links in the descriptions for the Substack, where Let's Build a Spaceship typically doesn't get articles about that, but if you want to just learn more about me, more about the stories that I've written, or if you are interested in some of the storytelling articles that I've done, or storytelling videos here, go there. There's not always, but there are some videos that do relate to an article, or articles that relate to a video. So yeah, you can check that out too. And for anyone wondering, because Substack, you can make subscriptions-based stuff where it's like somebody subscribes and that you need to be a subscriber to access stuff. That will never be the case. I will never have anything gated like that. At least that's my intention to never do that. I'm if you want to support me at the moment and buy a book. If eventually there's interest to do subscription-based stuff on Substack or here, it's like that. I don't want that to really gate stuff, but we'll see. I doubt that'll. If maybe when that comes up, I'll change my mind. Gotta be honest. But at least for now, no. The plan is you can freely read it all. Alright. That was more than enough of my talking.